Okay, everybody, we are here tonight. I'm feeling a little funky tonight. I'm trying to breathe through it. There's some funky energy going on. So Matt's gonna bear with me because I'm spacing, right?
Yeah, you all the time you need, man.
Yeah, man. Okay, so you guys know Matt. Matt is a board member, correct? Of Never Give Up.
The president.
President. Ooh, that's
Yeah.
a big one.
Yeah.
You guys, we kind of do. It's like a sister site. We have a lot of people from Never Give Up that we love and we adore. So I'm happy to kind of have you on here, tell your story, so all of your people can hang with us here tonight. So okay, so Matt, I don't know anything about Matt's story actually, so I am going to learn with you guys. So Matt, how long have you been in recovery?
I have been in recovery for about 4.5 years, but I just celebrated on January 4th 4 years of absolute sobriety.
Wow.
So, yeah, January 4th. Yep.
4 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so all right, well, why don't we backtrack a little bit? We'll go back to your childhood and maybe tell everybody about some of the behaviors and values you were raised around, if that's cool.
You know, my childhood was pretty good. I had the best mom on earth. My mom was the best woman, heart of gold. She did the best she could, with what she had. We didn't have a lot of money, you know what I mean? And I just, I was sexually abused at an early age, and then I believe I was like 6 or 7, and then it was from one of like the older kids in the neighborhood because I grew up in like a small town right on the state line in Wisconsin and Illinois, and then like after that, I had real big trust issues, and I isolated a lot, and then like my addiction, gene or mentality first manifested itself through food because I would sit inside and I would just eat and eat and eat and eat all day, and and I gained a lot of weight, and then I got more depressed, and I got picked on, and I just became kind of a shut in. Like I had a couple, real good friends, that I grew up with, and but other than that, I kept to myself. I played a lot of video games, watched a lot of TV, stuff like that. Um, and then when I was like 12 years old, my mom moved away from that small town, and it was because she was in an abusive relationship. That she was in out of necessity, to take care of me and provide for me, and the guy was, he was putting hands on her, so we left, and then we moved to a rough area in like the North Chicago, Illinois, Waukegan area, and I became more isolated because I was like I was a minority in that area, and it took me a while to make friends. But I had, over time, I made a couple good friends or whatever. But I was still always like real quiet, real shy, real reserved. And I just kind of like kept to myself a lot. And I started eating. I was just like food was my thing, man. It was my escape. It was the one thing I could control. Um, but my mom was great. She did the best she could with what she had. Um, she was gone a lot. She was working 2 jobs. After we moved out from that guy, and I spent a lot of time home alone. And then I like, I just kind of ran the streets after a while, and then I didn't get in a lot of trouble, but I got it in enough to where she knew we had to move out of the inner city and back to like small town Wisconsin, and then from there, I started high school in Wisconsin, and like I started smoking weed and going to like bar and kegers and stuff, and just to try to get in where I could fit in, because like I dressed like a city guy, but I was like out in the sticks and stuff. So just to blend in and like make friends, I started
Right.
smoking weed and drinking beer and stuff, and and then my sophomore year I started doing acid, and then my junior year I was doing mushrooms, and then my senior year I was doing cocaine, and it just escalated from there, and so like every year I tried something new, and it became the thing that I thought I was looking for my whole life, you know, uh,
Right.
I lost all the weight, and I started, getting noticed by girls or whatever. So, I started at an early age, I started, playing this role of like dope dealing bad boy or whatever, just to like, because I thought that's what was cool, the things we tell ourselves when we're young, and
Right.
um, and then like,
Rappers.
what's that?
just like the rappers.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. And and then like I started really moving a lot of drugs in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Like I was selling a lot of cocaine, a lot of ecstasy or whatever, and I was just getting, and then it got to the point where I was doing more than I sold, and it was really getting out of control. And like I wasn't even worried about the money anymore. I just was worried about getting high all the time, and that started happening around 19 or 20, and it just escalated from there. And then I was dating this girl, and then she got pregnant because she wanted to go to school in Minnesota, and that's what brought me to Minnesota. That's why I'm a Vikings fan today, because everyone asks me why. But but I wound up moving to Minnesota, and like because I found out she was pregnant, I stopped doing all the drugs and stuff. Because like I got a good job. I was working at the post office, and then me and her had a falling out. Like we were too young to like get that involved, and like she took on a lot, and I took on a lot. And it just we resented each other, so we separated. And she took my son with her, and I remember like because a lot of people wonder like where things went wrong. You know what I'm saying? And I remember exactly when, like the point in life that broke me. You know what I'm saying? Like it was Christmas, December 23rd, 2001, Christmas Eve. That's when my son's mother and my son, she took him and left. And then, he was teething about that time. And then like, to numb his teeth or whatever, we gave him these little baby pickles that were in the fridge. And then as I started picking up, I started finding these little pickles that he would throw all over the house. And I remember that, like, just finding him, and like, it hit me that he's not going to be here, and it like broke me, and I didn't want to feel anything. And I called someone I kind of knew through my job, and we started doing cocaine or whatever. And then like Christmas Eve morning rolled around, and he was getting ready to leave, and I was like, dude, I don't want. Where are you going? He's like, I'm gonna go be with my family. And then I got more depressed because I was spending Christmas Eve alone in an empty apartment with a tree with no lights, no presents, no family. And I'm like, well, dude, you got to give me something. And then he gave me what I found out later was crystal meth. You know what I mean? That was my first time doing crystal meth. And as soon as I did it, I was like, oh, I'm good to go. I'm fine. I cleaned up the apartment. Everything was good.
Right.
And, then that became like my new love, my new obsession, crystal meth or whatever. And that went on for a while. And then I lost my job at the post office due to layoffs because of September 11th and stuff. So I didn't want to be in a job where I could get laid off. So I took a job as a bouncer at a strip club, and that was like, that took my addiction. It just made it go totally, completely downward, down that spiral or whatever, because I was hanging out with the girls, and I was, what I mean? There was drugs everywhere, and it just like, and I thought it was exactly what I was looking for, because I was 22 and I was like sad, and I didn't know any better, you know what I mean? I thought I was living, the high life and in the fast lane, but all I was doing was like making my addiction progressively worse at an alarming rate. And then, yeah, and then I went from doing meth all the time to selling meth at the club to the girls, and then this went on for about 2 years, and then on my 24th birthday, I was dating someone else, and I was living out of hotels at this point because no one wanted me in their house because I was selling drugs. And she, like I went to work, and my girlfriend thought it would be a good idea to have a surprise party for me, because when I left, it was just her, and she was sitting there. I came back to a Red Roof Inn in Burnsville, Minnesota, and I remember I just saw cops everywhere, and I'm like, oh man, someone's gonna go to jail. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
Someone's in trouble, and turns out they were there waiting for me, and because I walked in the hotel room, there was 20 people there, that my girl invited. And then I'm like, dude, there's 100 cops outside. And they all threw their drugs on the floor and ran out the door. And then as the last guy came out, 6 cops came in. And I remember I had one shoe on and my hand in my pocket full of dope, and they took me to jail. And that was the first time I was ever really in trouble for drugs, but because it was my first offense, I had, they gave me some probation. I did like 90 days, but I was so sick with it. As soon as they let me out, I went right back to it. I never saw my PO. I never did, I didn't comply in any way. Like I told them what they needed to hear to let me out. And then as soon as I got out, I went back to it 100 times worse. Cause like when we take a break for a while, we get back to it, we go 100 times harder. And that's exactly what I did. So, it just got worse. My PO issued a warrant. And during this time, my godfather, he's from like the Madison area. He came and visited me, and he saw that I was clearly like strung out and not doing too good. And he's like, if you ever want to get away from all this, you can come live with me. I'll give you a job, you know. And then I got in trouble again, and then I called him, and he came and got me. And then I wound up in Madison, Wisconsin for a little bit, or the Madison area, um, you know, and I was doing really good. You know, I was just working with him, but it was in the middle of the nowhere, so I got like restless. And then I was back in Wisconsin, so I called some people I knew from back in the day, and I was like, I just need a night out, you know what I mean? And my buddy picked me up. I'm drinking beer on the ride, but and then I walk into this little dive bar in this small town, and people are literally doing lines of blow off the bar. So like 5 minutes, yeah. So 5 minutes of being there, I'm doing cocaine off the bar, and that was all she wrote. I was back into it. Like right after that, I was just doing cocaine and partying all the time. I quit working for my uncle. He eventually kicked me out. So I'm back selling cocaine on probation from another state. And like, you know, I just made a series of awful decisions that made the next outcome way worse. You know what I mean? I was like a chronic bad decision maker. And then I got revoked, sent back to Minnesota. I came back to the, you know, the area, but at this point I was dating this girl, and you know, we were serious, you know, and then I came across this guy. He was cooking crystal meth, and I knew how to cook dope, so we started cooking it together. And then, long story short, I got in trouble with this gentleman for the first fully functioning meth lab in this county's history. And my first offer was 18 years in, 18 years out. And but at this time, like the detectives, the drug task force, they got like the three main detectives got in trouble for embezzling money and like falsifying evidence. So my case and a bunch of other cases they were, you know, investigating, they had to throw them out. So the only thing I got in trouble for was buying my own Sudafed. That's the only thing they couldn't throw out. So I got like literally a slap on the wrist. Like when the judge sentenced me, I remember smiling. You know, and I remember the judge was like, "It makes me sick that I can only sentence Mr. Traver to 1 year in county jail today. You guys, yeah." So I got blessed, but I didn't learn anything. So I went back to it, and then I started doing OxyContin and opiates because, like, I'm like, well, meth's what got me in trouble. You know, the cocaine and the uppers, that's what got me in trouble. So I'll do some downers. You know what I mean? So I started doing OxyContins. You know, and then that got out of control. And then one day I was with the guy that I was getting my OxyContins from, and he made a stop real quick, and he, you know, he grabbed a little package or something. And I'm like, what is that? And he's like, it's heroin, dude. And I'm like, what are you, insane? And he's like, what do you think that shit is, dude? Except I got to do $10 of this. You're doing $400 worth of that a day. And I'm like, and that's all I need to hear. You know, I get more bang for, I get high for $10, you know? So, and then, you know, right on time, I started doing heroin every day, all day. That's all I cared about. That's all I wanted to do. It became like my reason for living. And it just got out of control. And I was still on probation for that meth lab thing. And then I got popped for a DUA. They sent me to Milwaukee Secure Detention Facility. It's like an alternative to revocation. You know, they send you there for like a 90-day treatment program. And while I was there, I just met some plugs, you know, and then I got out. And then I remember getting out, and I'm like, ooh, I haven't done heroin in like 90 days. When I get out, I'm going to be super duper high. And then I did a little bump, and it didn't really do what I wanted to. So I got mad. And then my buddy's like, hey, I'll get you right. And that was the first time I put a needle in my arm. And then after that, needles all day, every day. It was like my new thing, you know, and it's all I cared about. It was my new obsession. It was my new, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just shooting up all day, every day. And it just got progressively worse. Somehow I made it through probation for that meth lab case. When I got off probation, or as I was getting off probation, I came to Green Bay to visit a buddy of mine. I knew him from back in the day, and he was like that guy who sold like weed out of his kid's mom's parents' basement. You know, it wasn't really doing much, but he was up here. He was like working at the shipyard. He was making like $50 an hour. He had a house. He had a car. I'm like, well, if he can do it, I can come up here and do it, you know? But he didn't do heroin or coke or nothing. He just smoked weed, you know what I mean? So I was fooling myself. So I came up here and I was doing really good for a while. And then like, I got a new place, you know, I checked all the boxes of, you know, material success or whatever. And then I was with my girl at the time, and I'm like, we should go to Milwaukee and just get a little bit of heroin.
Oh
And
no.
and then of course we did it one day, and then the next day, and then the next day, and then we met someone in Green Bay that had it. And then that was all she wrote. Like, my life in Green Bay became unmanageable. I was powerless again. I was a slave to heroin again. And it just escalated. And then it got to the point where I was going to Illinois and picking up a lot for really cheap and bringing it back here. And one day someone wanted to buy some off me or whatever, and he didn't have enough money, but he had a bag of methamphetamine. And
Oh.
at this point, I hadn't, touched meth, seen meth in almost 3 years. And then I was like, yeah, babe, you want to do some meth for fun? She's like, sure. So, and at this point, everything we were doing, we were injecting. And I never shot up crystal meth until that point. And I just remember as soon as we were done shooting up, I'm like, this is going to be bad. I like this way too much. Like, I enjoyed that way too much. We're in trouble, but it didn't stop us. We just went back at it. And long story short, 3 months later, we were getting evicted. We were homeless. We were on the streets. We were robbing. We were stealing. We were serving. You know what I mean? Just, things got progressively worse really, really quick. And then she got arrested, and then we split up. I got a bunch of minor charges or whatever, like possession of a needle, possession of a dirty cotton ball, a couple of prescription pills, but I never went to court for any of them. So by the time they got me, they didn't give me a cash bond, and they were going to throw me in prison for 4 years. And I'm like, for all this little stuff, but they're like, dude, you don't come to court and it's adding up, like clearly you don't give a, darn or whatever. So I'm like, there's got to be some other way. And my lawyer's like, well, have you ever heard of drug court? I'm like, no, I have no idea. And he was explaining the rules to me or whatever. And he's like, so they'll let you out. And that's all I heard. They'll let me out, sign me up. Because, in my mind, I just want to get out and go get high again. And so I applied the first time. They denied me, and then I went back in front of them again. I sold them on myself or whatever. I'm like, listen, you won't regret it. So they accepted me. And then I had warrants in other counties. So when they let me out for that, another county came and got me. But when I did my 30 days in that other county, they let me out in that county, like Brown County, Green Bay or whatever. Didn't know I was out. So I'm like, oh, I got a window to go party. You know what I mean? And so I went on the run for like 6 months. I got picked up again for an OWI. And then the lady from Brown County Treatment Court came to my court date in Rock County.
Wow.
And was like, we want you to get out and not call us so we can just lock you up forever. Keep playing games with us, dude. And they technically couldn't terminate me because I technically never started.
Right.
But whatever. It was like a blessing in disguise. But, and then I came and I turned myself in. I kind of half-assed it for the first 42 days. I relapsed January 2nd of 2018. That was the last time I did any drugs. I turned myself in on January 4th to the treatment court because I called them and told them, I messed up. I relapsed. And I know you guys are going to lock me up. And she was like, come in today. I'm like, I'm too lit up today to sit in a little room. I'm like, I'll come in tomorrow for court. I promise. And she's like, if you don't come in, I can't help you. But if you come in, we'll work with you. So I came in. I owned up to it. They put me in jail for a week and they put me on a GPS, And while I was in jail for that week, a buddy of mine that I used to run the streets with really, really bad, like we were out here doing it pretty big or whatever. He set up his plug for 7 pounds and they still gave him 20 years. And I crossed him in the hallway and he told me how they laid him down for 20 years. And he's like, dude, you got to get out of this life. This ain't for you. Yeah. And then we both went to our dorms or whatever. And then he went in his cell and hung himself.
Man.
And then I was just like, and I remember looking out the window as they locked everybody in. And I remember smelling that funky jail smell. And then I got my tray for breakfast and I'm listening to everybody like lying about their lives in the streets. You know how jail is or whatever. And I'm like, dude, my story's not going to end like this. You know what I'm saying? And after that, I was all in. You know what I mean? Like, and I was like a model drug court participant. The worst thing I did after that, I was unable to give him a sample on command. And then when I couldn't, I ran across the street to my probation officer, peed for her like 10 minutes later, and it was all good. That was the worst thing I did after that. because like I like something like the light went on when my friend hung himself, and that was it, and
Right.
then and then I graduated court. I was living at sober living. I moved out, got my own place, got my own car, checked all those boxes again. I was real proud about who I was becoming, and then then I crossed paths with David John, at a New Year's Eve function in 2019. Me and him hit it off right away. He was really brand new because I met him, he was out for like 6 days, and I remember seeing him, and he had that look I had when I first started coming around. Like, he's like, "What's this all about? These people are weird. They don't want to help me. They want to judge me." And I'm like, "No, dude, I get it, man." And we just started going to the gym, and we just started watching football. And then, from that, he had his little slip ups like we all do in the beginning. And after that, Never Give Up was formed. And, we've been doing that ever since. And then he passed away this time last year. And we've been trying to do our best to keep this thing moving. And that's pretty much my story. I don't know how much time I have, but I just wanted to give you the condensed version because I can turn it into a 4-hour ordeal. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah, man. So it sounds like the last dose of trauma you kind of dealt with in jail was really the deciding factor.
Yeah.
You mentioned you even remember the smell in the room, in the jail, when you were looking out the window. So, yeah, man, what do you think it was? Do you think it was so I guess we're going to move to the criminalization part, right? Where did it work to be put into jail all of those times and be thrown in jail, or was it not helpful?
When I was on the run from drug court the first time and I was in there for a couple months, I needed that time to physically be taken away from drugs because I wasn't if there was drugs around me at that point, I would have been unable to resist. And then when I got out the last time and I turned myself into court, but I went to jail. I've probably done over 6 years in jail at different times, and every time except for that last time, I obsessed about the day I got out so I could get under the influence or whatever I was thinking about, so it helped at the end, but I was ready to change anyway. I was just fed up and I was ready to go all in, you know what I mean? But I knew I had treatment coming too, because that's for me, you can lock people up for as long as you want, but until you address their treatment needs and address the actual symptoms of, their disease of addiction, you're not going to do them any favors, and you're wasting their time, your time, taxpayers' money, everybody that puts money on their books. You're just wasting a lot of time and resources if you're not going to actually correct the problem, because the Department of Corrections in Wisconsin, they really and that with Dave, that was his thing. And that's how kind of Never Give Up came to be, is because he was in prison for 6 years and he had treatment on his sentencing recommendations or whatever, but he never got it for 6 years. So that's why he got out. And 6 days later, he was, using dope, because he never, so yeah. But I physically, for me, had to be separated and locked in a cage away from it for an extended period of time and let my brain heal,
Yes, for sure. I totally relate with that. How many times have we all gone to jail and we're just counting down the minutes until we get out so we can go use again? And I like that you pointed out earlier, I was so sick in my addiction and in my sickness that I would want to use as soon as I'd get out. And that's reality. We are usually in jail trying to line stuff up on the phone. I would be on the phone telling whoever was going to come pick me up to bring me meth. Make sure you bring a meth pipe or a crack pipe. And yeah, it's pretty bad. So tell me about drug court. What kind of system was that? So you had to do some jail time, but what did drug court provide? What kind of services?
When I was in drug court, because I was self-employed for so long that just to be they literally had to baby step me and dog walk me into just the simple things that that escape you when you become so submerged in your addiction, finding a job. You know what I mean? I remember I was talking to my PO. She's like, "So one of your requirements is to get employment." I'm like, "How do I do that?" She's like, "Well, there's these pieces of paper. and and you put your stuff on them, and then you give them back to these people, or you go on the computer and filling out an application online. When I first got sober, I might as well have been trying to like read, a foreign language that I've never seen before. It was freaking me out. But like over time, I just, and then like they put me in intensive outpatient for 6 weeks, and they also put me on Vivitrol as well. And I feel that the Vivitrol helped me in the beginning, because like there was some side effect. Like the first couple of days, I was very angry, but I didn't have cravings. But like after like the third or fourth shot, I had no side effects, no symptoms, and I wasn't thinking about dope at all.
Wow.
Like I was like getting to the appointment to get my shot was like a pain in the ass, you know what I mean? And then like it got to the point where going to UAs for drug court was like an inconvenience because I knew I wasn't dirty. I wasn't sweating them anymore, but like they gave me the accountability that I needed because like there's a whole team of people. Like you have your PO and your judge and then the cop and then your case manager and then whatever you got going on. But they gave me the structure I needed and they gave me like, each phase like kind of helps you like progress a little better. And I needed that because I didn't know anything about anything to be a functioning adult in society.
Right.
And they like literally walked me through it. Like they gave you like a handbook on how to do it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I needed it,
Basic living skills. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the intensive outpatient was that, right? It was kind of just life skills and learning how to cope through
Yeah.
bullshit and stuff like that.
Yeah. Like, because they make you do, like they call it your lifeline or your timeline. And then you write from the time you're born till where you're at right now. They make you write out all these, things that significant moments in your life. And during intensive outpatient, I did some digging and I remembered that I was sexually assaulted because in my active addiction, I did so much dope that I completely buried that.
Right.
And then my counselor's like, I bet that's why you use dope, because like you want to repress that trauma so bad, you don't even want to think about it, that you just stayed numb to it to the point where you completely forgot about it. And that like blew my mind, and like, it got me to like, it helped me process my emotions, because like when I first got out, I remember I was just walking through the mall and then I just started crying for no reason. I'm like, I don't know what's happening, and I'm like fanning myself. I'm like, I have no idea what's going on right now, but I need to go to the car and like regroup. And it's just because I didn't like really address anything. Like I was sober, but I wasn't working through anything,
Right.
And then, intensive outpatient really helped me, talk and process and like deal with stuff that I had just put on the shelf for so long,
Right.
and it helped me heal.
And so you didn't have a father figure kind of really in your life growing up then, huh?
No, he went to, I never really knew him. He was in prison for drugs for a long time. I think he went to jail like when I was real young. Like I never really knew him, and like until I got in my own trouble, I always resented him. Like why doesn't he write me? What? And I have a son now, and when I was going through my stuff, it was hard for me to reach out to him because I was so guilty and shameful. But like it kind of let me know where he was coming from, and we reconnected briefly, but I was in active addiction. So he didn't really want me around because he was on parole. And, he lent me some money and I didn't pay him back. And, he passed like 2 years ago, but I didn't really know him. But yeah, he wasn't really around that much. I had a stepdad, but we weren't really close. He was good to my mom. That's all I cared about, yeah, I didn't really have I had my grandpa. He was like my male role model. He was like the best guy. He had 9 kids, worked like a blue collar job. He had his house paid off. He did everything by the book. He was old school. I looked up to him a lot, and but yeah, I never really knew my dad.
Yeah. So it's so complicated, right? And I listening to your story and hearing, you started with like food, right? And that was after your sexual abuse.
Yeah.
Not to mention you had your parents or your mother, who was probably wrapped up in her own issues. She was you said she was in an abusive relationship, and
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so like the ways that your brain learned to cope were completely on your own, since she wasn't capable of teaching you. And it's pretty interesting. I think it's fascinating to kind of go backwards and look at people's stories and kind of the way that they develop. And it's really like a lack of coping mechanisms, and we just don't know how to cope. So we just use drugs. And if your father was in prison for drugs, I'm sure that was kind of stirring around up in your brain as well, and thinking that maybe that's how we're supposed to get through life, by just
Yeah.
getting high, and
Mhm.
yeah,
No,
man,
like I
that's
used to tell people that too, like, like from the time I was like 17 to the time I was like 22 and I started getting in trouble. I'm like, well, I'm just a chip off the old block. I'm just like the old man. This is how I'm supposed to live, partying hard and, killing myself slowly with drugs, and I used to say that a lot actually. Like,
do
but
you are you able to recognize all of the ways that you manifested that life and kind of created that life for yourself?
yeah, totally. Absolutely. 100%. Like once, like now that I've got, like an extended amount of clean time, I look back and I see all the things that I used to like minimize and rationalize and like just tell myself to justify, you
Yeah,
know, spending all my money on dope or doing some, gangster shit to get, the next fix or whatever, it's just like it's also obvious now, but at the time, you know, it was like it was almost like you're schizophrenic, you know what I mean? And like dyslexic when you're in active addiction, like because your
yes,
craziness makes sense. You know what I mean? And I just I was able to tell myself the biggest pile of bullshit and believe it, because I just wanted to keep getting high, and not think about stuff because like as time went on, I just kept doing more and more horrible stuff to people that I care about that I had to do that much more to like be at peace with it. But I wasn't really at peace at all, if that makes any sense. It was just I was just numbing the fact, and then like when I would become unnumbed or the dope would wear off, I would have to do like that much more, and
right.
then eventually the drugs weren't fixing anything either. They would just be another part of my big problem, you know. And then I didn't really have a spiritual aspect in life, or a God concept or a higher power. Like when I was going through stuff, and even though it was like all my own decisions and all my own choices, because it was self will run riot, like to the perfect example of that, like I used to curse God. I'm like, how could you do this to me? And, I'm like, but it was just me doing it to myself out of
Right.
my own selfish needs and wants, and it took me a long time to get to that point too, because like the physical craving and the mental obsession, like the literature talks about, that was easy for me to grasp. But like, the God concept and the higher power and all that stuff, it took me a while to get there. And then one day, because I heard it 100,000 times, that one day a buddy of mine, Pete, he's like, dude, it's a God of your understanding as
Yeah.
you see him. And I was like, okay, I get it now. And then it was just easier for me to because someone could tell us stuff 100 times, and then all it takes is one person to just put their little spin on it. You're like, oh, I get it now. You know what I mean? It's like
Light bulb. Yeah.
yeah, like
So then your mother wasn't she wasn't did she teach you about anything about God, or that was just not like part of y'all's family?
my mom is very spiritually enlightened. She's like we all know Jeremy and how he gets down. My mom's she's a tarot card reader and like she does psychic work. Yeah. And so she's very spiritually enlightened. You know what I mean? She was trying to teach me about chakras and, things like that. And like, numerology and, things like that. But, when you're like 16 to 22, you're like, Ma, you're crazy. You know what I mean? I'm not
Right.
trying to do that. Get out of my room type stuff. And
Leave
she
me
was always trying
alone.
to, you're embarrassing me, Mom. But she meant well. And like now that I'm like, sober and like I'm open to all things, like I realized that she was really on something, because like especially like with everything she went through dealing with me and my active addiction.
Right.
I know I put her through the ringer, but she was able to like navigate through it. And if she wasn't like the way she was,
Right.
she wouldn't have been able
She
to do it.
helped through it the right
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, with her spirituality and the faith
Yeah.
that she developed. That's amazing. I think it's really cool that I'm the same way, right? Like I don't want you to think I'm like this person that is like got this solid relationship with God, because I'm like, I'm not, right? Like I was like that when I was growing up. I didn't, when you say God concept, I have my spiritual mentor, Pastor Pat. He tells me all the time, I say Jesus concept, right? Because I'm still trying to wrap my brain around it and
Mhm.
and dig in and develop that ability to connect that way. And he tells me all the time, he's like, I think I'm going to write a book, and one of the chapters is going to be called Jesus, more than a concept.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. I think Jeremy is the one who says, what does he say? Christ consciousness. It's like so cool. I'm like, I'm fascinated with just the words, right? Like it's a really cool way to kind of look at it through spirituality.
Yeah. No, he's explained things. He's another one that like the way he puts stuff with his own spin, it like just clicks and it makes sense, you know.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about it when we were all doing our little group session on your thing the other day. He
Yeah.
you know, like how I enter like the first time I ever crossed paths with him, you know, in the physical realm or, you know, in person, he I was really struggling with like the passing of David because like there was
Right.
just some other extracurricular stuff going on. And I met him at this place and we were talking and like he pulled me aside and like I was talking to him for 45 minutes, but it felt like forever. And like he was like literally like just poking at my heart and like, but it made me feel better because he knew exactly where I was at and he put it into words I couldn't, you know, because, and then, you know, like, so
Cool.
I'm grateful for his presence in my life, you know, because he's a good dude and he means well. And, you know, I'm just grateful for people like that too, you know. But yeah, you know, and then like with my higher power or whatever, it was, you know, when people said it, something greater than yourself, you know, because for so long I wasn't anything anyway, you know, so anything could have been greater than me at some point, you know, and you know, it was just that much easier, you know, because like I talked about this the other day too, like you know, I had like this outrageously self-righteous uncle who smacked his wife with the Bible and said, "Honor your husband." So that was like my first experience with like organized religion at a very young. I'm like, I don't want nothing to do with that, you know, and then
Yes.
you know, and then I was dealing with like some biker dudes, and when they go to church, there's nothing to do with God. It's just where they go to like talk about all the stuff they may or may not be doing, you know, to other people or whatever, you know. So like church, and then my uncle, and I was just like, I'm good, man. I'll just do me, you know. And so I was really turned off to like God and you know all that stuff. But you know, like you know, I have my like you know I have my own spiritual principles that I practice. Um, you know, I don't talk about them much because like a lot of people can get upset about it because you know you don't do things their way or they don't like what you have to say or whatever. You know, so I just do what I do to keep myself spiritually fit. If you ask me, I'll tell you, but you know, I don't push it on anybody because you know it just causes more drama than like you know help. You know what I
It's
mean?
it's not necessary. I think
Yeah,
the only time that we ever really feel compelled to uh, push our beliefs on other people is when we are insecure about our beliefs, right? And we're like completely unaware that we're insecure and that we're going to change more. But yeah, like there's no reason for all that. We have plenty of awesome
yeah,
people who, you know, we can like I found my spiritual mentor, my first one. He's from South Africa. He's a Catholic guy from South Africa. And
yeah,
he's just like, I'll never be Catholic, but it was just an amazing opportunity to really kind of learn about the Bible and replace all of the assumptions that have been created that were causing me to disbelieve. Because, like you said, organized
mhm,
religion was the cause of war, right? Like we all heard that quote and we all felt like it was this gross, icky thing that we didn't want anything to do with. Christianity
yeah,
makes you get a nasty taste in your mouth, right? Like just the word itself.
yeah,
But there were a lot of assumptions and things that I just didn't know, right? And that's I had to really kind of cancel all of those out and learn truths, really
yeah,
learn who Jesus was, and really learn what he did, and the meaning of dying for our sins, you know, because it was such an it didn't mean shit to me. Like
yeah,
Jesus died for our sins. People would say it, and like I'd look over in church, and people would be like crying, and I'm like, why? It just doesn't mean anything to me. And
yeah,
so it really helped to kind of figure all those things out. Take words like sin and really define them within my mind and recognize the ways that I turn away from God, because that's all sinning is, right? And
Yeah.
you have to like learn all this stuff. And when you don't go to like youth group every Wednesday, you know, when you're a kid, you don't know shit. So you got to get on Zoom with strangers in South Africa and learn about the Bible. But yeah, man. So let's talk about David John a little bit. I know there's some people watching I know who will absolutely know who David John is, but so Never Give Up is an organization. Matt is the president of Never Give Up. David John created it. David John passed away last year. And something that has really touched me there, right, is to watch all of you guys continue this on for him and continue to build this. It's amazing, right? Like, we all have these platforms, and to think, you know, that someday somebody like you and a board of people could be continuing on a legacy, it's absolutely amazing. So yeah, tell me about how Never Give Up was formed. Let's jump into that a little.
So like David John was about 3 months sober, and he you know, he had a relapse or whatever, and you know, I went over to his house, and he was really like, you know, he did some uppers, he did some amphetamines or whatever, so he was on one, you know. And I just remember he called me and told me, and you know, Dave's a big guy, and I'm like, Dave, listen, if I come over, dude, if I want to leave, you're gonna let me leave, you know.
Yeah,
and he's like, I would never hurt you, bro, you know, and, 'cause you never know. And he's like, I would never hurt you, bro. I love you, man. I'm like, all right. I come over, and then like he ripped everything apart looking for cameras, you know, because he was just, you know, he was on one real bad. And you know, so we went to Walmart, we got some stuff, and you know, fixed his thermostat and you know, everything that he kind of destroyed or whatever. And I was like, are you gonna go get your white chip? And he was like, no. He's like, these people, I don't want to be judged by these people. I don't want these people to feel better because I fell off, and give them something to talk about. He's like, this is what bothers me about recovery. And I'm like, all right, man, well, you know, just try to get some sleep, and we'll talk tomorrow. And you know, so you know, I gave him a hug, and my girlfriend at the time gave him a hug, and we went home, and he seemed like he had mellowed out. And he called me the next day, and he's like, bro, call me when you get off work, I got to talk to you. I'm like, all right, man, whatever. And I called him. He's like, hey, I'm starting this group. It's going to be judgment free, and it's where people can come and talk about their stuff and not be judged. And if people start judging, we're going to get rid of them, you know, because we want a place for, you know, online, you know, it's not anonymous or whatever, but people can have their anonymity, you know, because it's Facebook, but it's a judgment free respect zone, you know, where you can come in and talk about your issues and not get like talked down to or whatever. And, you know, I got off work, so I was like the 8th member or whatever, because he was already at it. And you know, so we started doing that, and then he, you know, we like within a couple of days we had like 500 members, and then he told his story, you know, like his journey, because he had like slept and he was like, you know, sound mind. He told his story, and then I went next, and then there's a guy, Eric. He's like the guy who brought Heroin Anonymous to Green Bay, who was mine and David's sponsor at the time. He told his story, and then it just started taking shape, and then all of a sudden, like, we just blew up, man. And all of a sudden, like, certain people started taking notice, like, you know, people that could really help us take this platform and do something with it. And then that's where we got like the idea of like prison reentry homes, you know, with, you know, because it's just like sober living mixed with drug court, because I was a graduate of drug court, and he knew what he didn't get in prison, and he still was tight with a lot of people in prison. And so we're like, all right. So he started you know, because Dave was that guy, man. He was a go-getter. Like, you know, tell Dave you couldn't do something, it was done 5 minutes later, you know. And so he started just moving and grooving, and then like he started talking with, like, I think it was like the ACLU, and they got a, you know, then he had someone up here like take him under his wing that knew that, knew how to move around in these circles. And like Dave really just like leveled up, as we say. And then before we knew it, like we were really, you know, this lady, Angela Wolfram, came on board, and she told us what a 501c3 was. Yeah. So we went that route. And then like all of a sudden, like this Facebook platform, and it happened right as COVID took over too. So a lot of people in this area, and as they came came to the group and they really found like an escape from all the negative and the nastiness that was going on. And like I still see people to this day, they tell me they're sorry about David, you know, and how much the group helped them get through 2020 and 2021. And that means a lot, you know, and that's what Dave wanted to do. So it was working. And now we're an officially filed 501c3. As of, I think it was towards the end of the year, but like it's still relatively new, but we're good now. So right now we're just in the stages of raising money to get these reentry homes and make them a realistic thing, you know, to carry on Dave's vision and make his dream a reality. Because like I work, you know, I'm in Green Bay, Wisconsin in the wintertime. People get out of prison all the time, you know, and you know, and there's only a couple sober living houses here, and some of them you don't want to send people to anyway, you know, and
Right.
they'll call me and I'll be like, yeah, let me call around. And in like the 12 to 24 hours, I'm waiting on a response. It's 0 degrees out, -20. So they go to the door that's always open, you know, the dope house or their toxic ex-girlfriend or whatever. And by the time I'm getting back to them, they're already in the police reports, you know what I mean? Or overdosed and gone, you know, and we're trying to eliminate that. So when they come home, especially from prison, because like 5 years in prison, 10 years in prison, you need to figure out how to like adjust to the real world because you've been away for so long. Like I remember we picked up my dad's friend from prison one time and he was down for like 15 years and we handed him a cell phone and he looked at it like, what is this? Yeah, he never saw one before, you know, but could you imagine, like we all had them in our pockets and he's like, what is this? He's like, it's a phone. He's like, this is really a phone. He's like shaking it, you know, and he's like, how do I do it? Because, you know, there's no buttons, but like
smartphone.
Yeah, but like, so that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're in the process of doing, and we're on our way. You know, you know, we're just trying to do right by my guy David. You know, I work with his brother Jason took the helm. He's doing a great job. You know, Jason and his wife were the ones who put David into the treatment where I met him at.
Right.
So, you know, they're kind of responsible for all this anyway. You know what I mean? So, and then we got Mark with us, you know, and we got Amanda, and we got a good group of people, you know. So I think we're going to, you know, do good things. We're going to change the world, you know.
Yeah, and you guys, so we talk about these groups all the time, right? And like, people who are not in the Facebook group world don't even really understand what Facebook groups are, right? So these groups, it's a way for everybody to interact, right? People can just see the posts and they can interact, but it's a private space within, well, unless you have a public group, but so these groups provide so much, right? Like when I first got clean, that was what I did, right? Like I called a treatment center and they were like, we need $50,000 just for you to walk in the door. And I was like, well, that's not going to happen. So I turned to the online world and I started kind of watching intervention and just doing all these really weird things that were just kind of introducing recovery into my life. And the Facebook groups, the recovery groups online were everything. like just because there's so many people who are just getting, like, you see people posting and you're like, wow, like they're not ashamed of that. Like they're talking about how they robbed people and like did this and did that. And it just kind of gets you in there and you really start to meet people and connect with people and build relationships with people who love you unconditionally just because you're a brother or sister in recovery. And that's factual. People don't, there's many people who I've spoken to outside of these groups or you know, who just don't understand this concept. They've never felt this unconditional love from complete strangers. And I'll tell you what, it's life-changing, you know, and you start to really portray that. And you see all of these people around you and they're flooding your timeline with just recovery stuff. You know, it's not garbage about celebrities and dumb shit from old friends who are, you know, you can still tell they're using and you're like going through their profile, like trying to look at, but it's all canceled out because then your timeline is full of personal development, recovery, you know, people sharing their testimonies and love and encouragement from every direction. When there's any kind of negativity, it's a great opportunity for everybody to get in the moment, feel
Yeah.
your shit, experience your human experience, and grow through it. I've grown so much with you guys, you know, and we've had people that have drama and issues, and you know, they're like, I don't want anything to do with these Facebook groups. It's all drama, but you know, we always come back and we learn together and we grow through it, and we do workshops and we have challenges, and we're all pushing each other to be better people. And if you don't have a support group, I highly encourage you to get one, whether you're in recovery or not. Every human needs a support group. Like,
Yeah, I mean, 'cause, like, whether it's just, whether it's drug addiction, because I know people that can't leave the house and they've never done a drug in their life. They're
right,
just like, they have like just crippling anxiety.
anxiety.
But
Yep.
like, this gets them like communicating with people, like-minded people, like that's one thing I love about Never Give Up is it's getting so big that someone can be like, I'm in such and such county in this state, and then I'll get the notification. Then when I open my phone, there's already like 20, 30 responses. You know what I mean? And like, it's just generally like beneficial, and it's like there to make the world a better place. Like, and while I got you, man, like kudos to you, man. That recovery challenge, man, that's exactly what I needed, dude. Because like, I go to the gym and like, but I eat like trash. You know what I mean? Like I'm a junk food junkie, and like, but like, because it was you, and then my buddy Corey from Sober Eyes, he was like posting pictures of vegetables and stuff like for his New Year's resolution. And sometimes we forget we can do stuff too. Like, oh, I can not eat garbage all day. I can actually eat vegetables. And then like, like sometimes I'll go to the gym, and it's like it's kind of like when I go to the casino. It's like, what machine am I feeling today? I don't have like a routine. Like I'm not trying to work my back out that day. I just like do a little bit of one thing and then I'll go. But
Absolutely.
it just kind of got stagnant. So now I got like structure, which is what someone like me needs anyway. Plus with like, and I got the accountability, and then like I got people like acknowledging my growth, and like and we're building each other up that way too. Because like physical fitness was a huge part of my recovery. Because like again in the beginning, because I was like 280 pounds when I first got sober, and then like it's cold and there's nothing to do, and I just kept eating. I'm like, I gotta put a stop to this, dude. So I started going to the gym, and then like at first you think it's gonna be socially awkward, but when I throw my headphones in and just do my thing, dude, it's just me. You know what I mean? Like I'm in my own zone, and it's really helpful. And I encourage anybody, because like you start looking better, you start feeling better, and then you start healing better. You know what I mean?
Yes. Healing. That is key, you guys. We can heal damaged cells in our body. Like we can heal them. So it is important. That's something we have a whole health and recovery hub dedicated to health and fitness, because that's something that's more support we provide. We want people to be doing these things and recognizing the ways that they're able to climb through intense levels of pain and discomfort and things they don't want to do. It's just this constant forward momentum. And it doesn't matter. Like I skipped 3 days working out this week, but it doesn't matter, right? Because this year, you guys too, you guys will all this year, wait till we get to the end of the year and you guys see how much you've been doing. It's just amazing watching all of you guys pushing each other. And days I don't want to do anything, I can go on into our group and see all of you guys just crushing shit.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like,
it's amazing.
Like, and I always, like one of my things that Never Give Up to is like, I find people to share their testimonies, like, I'm doing with you right now. Because like when I first started going to meetings, I didn't really say a whole lot, but then I would go to speaker meetings, and then you realize that, because you think you did the worst of the worst, you're like, I'm the worst person on earth. And then you hear these people up on the podium and you're like, I got nothing on that, dude. You know what I mean? And then then you realize some of the stuff, you're overthinking, and what you've done isn't that bad. And if this guy can do or this lady can do what they've done and find peace, so can I. You know what I mean? That's why, like, that's another thing I really love about Never Give Up. There's not like one figurehead or main guy. It's for the people of Never Give Up. You know what I mean? They all have an opportunity to share their testimony, and be there, and just inspire one another, and we help lift each other up, like, and then, like the fitness thing too, like, it's huge, man. Cause like you can either, sit there and do nothing or get busy and, work on yourself, cause investing in yourself is money well spent, I think,
Uh,
so.
so fitness is it's probably bad for me to say because I'm, whatever, but
Mhm.
so I use fitness to get high. Like that is how I get high.
Mhm.
It's the most, you said earlier, you were, after you did meth, you realized you were able to do all these things and get your house clean and, go to
Mhm.
work and do all of the things you needed to do, right? And we become dependent on that artificial energy source,
Yeah.
and um, exercise releases natural endorphins, right?
Yeah.
And the first, I took a 21-day challenge. I committed to 21 days. I was like, I heard somewhere they said it takes 21 days to break a habit or to build a habit, right? So I was like, shit,
Mhm.
we're just gonna do 21 days. That's it. So
Mhm.
you start to really kind of recognize throughout that those 21 days that this is, you get high afterwards, like you get this dopamine rush and you're in this great mood and you have all this energy and motivation to work and do all of these things, um and it just becomes habit, and it really becomes habit, and it's, you have to, well, you don't have to, you will notice. I notice very, very strongly when I don't work out, I have a shit day. I'll be like crying, screaming at my kids, and that's what I turn to, right? Like where we used to go do meth, or like shooting up meth was my, it was like heaven, right? But like
Mhm.
now, like that's what I know when I'm upset, like I need to go sweat it out. Like I
Yeah.
have a gym set up in my office, and I just work out here, right? Like I don't have time to go to the gym, but it's literally, the dopamine rushes are literally what kind of constructed my entire recovery. And so it's really I tell people all the time, like I still have a problem with wanting to be high, right? Like I haven't been able to stop that, right? Like I smoke cigarettes, and really I smoke cigarettes because it gives me a little buzz. Like
Mhm.
that's why, right? Like I still struggle with that, and I know I'll wrap my brain around it at some point and really be
Mhm.
able to figure it out. But for now, just going to do things that I can get high healthy, right? Like natural. So,
Yeah. Good. Positive substitutes. Yep. 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
like,
No,
yeah, I'm really high. Somebody's probably watching, like, wow, I can't believe she just said that.
yeah. Yeah, hopefully they're not joining right now. Like, what are they talking about? I was like, these guys are supposed to help us. What the heck? Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
literally, I tell people that all the time because, like, even with 4 years of sobriety and my spiritual fitness is in good grasp, I still have days where because I'm wound up pretty tight. Ask anyone who's actually seen me in person. And so like I'll just have days where I just need to go throw heavy stuff around. So I'm like physically exhausted. I'm like, and everyone's like, oh, how do you enjoy? Do you really enjoy working out? I'm like, absolutely not. Weights are heavy and being sweaty is good. But when it's done, I feel better, and I know it's like it's a positive means to a better end as opposed to like sitting there and like eating little Debbie's or going to Popeyes and just destroying because like I'm under no impression that like I'm going to be physically fit and be totally healthy for the rest of my life.
Right.
I know I destroyed my body for 25 years. So I'm like just trying to stop the erosion or like keep it at bay for as long as I can. You know what I mean? Like, because I know there's gonna be one day I'm just gonna be walking and I'm gonna like fall and break a hip or something. Like it's gonna be all bad. But I know that day's there. But I'm gonna try to prolong it as best I can. I'm just trying to be realistic. But
Yeah,
it's
man.
funny. People are like, "You go to the gym?" Because I got a little spare tire. I'm like, imagine if I didn't. You know what I mean? Just imagine if I didn't. I'd be like wheezing. I'd be snoring while I'm awake,
I
talking to you
know,
type stuff.
right?
It's bad, dude. But yeah. So yeah, I just try to stay at it. I don't do it perfectly, but like another thing I really like about your challenge is that the reading part because I like literally put my phone away and disconnect from that because I'll get sucked in you know, and before you know it, the sun will be up and I got to be at work in 20 minutes. Almost like I'm on drugs, you know, like, oh man, are those birds chirping? Fuck. Like, you know what
What
I'm
is
saying?
going on?
Yeah, oh, man, it's 5 a.m. Son of a bitch. So yeah, you know, and then when you read, you like naturally wear down. You know, like if you just start reading a book, you start relaxing and decompressing by absorbing useful information, not some guy's wacky opinion from the internet or whatever. You know? But yeah, I like that part too because you know, the last book I actually read was Adam Gutton's book. He sent it to me like, yeah, that was the first book I've read in the free world
Oh,
ever.
in
And
the
then,
free world, right? You can read like a book a day when you're in jail, though.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, James Patterson was like, yeah, we all read them.
So smart. I would get on the phone with my mom and be like, Mom, I read a whole book today. Like, you have no idea. Like, that's hilarious. Yeah, man. So we have the challenge going still, you guys. I was like wanting to do the 75 hard challenge and I was gonna do it with like the group, and I was like, oh my God, like I can never do this. This is really hard. So we kind of made it a little more simplified. We don't, so like meal plans and all of that stuff, when we're doing that, we focus on nutrition, right? Like we are just trying to properly fuel our bodies so that we're in, you know, we're able to perform well, right? So we don't diet, we don't do, I eat Little Debbie's and shit like that all the time. It's totally okay. We're managing it. But yeah, so the challenge is pretty easy. And we do have, well, the contest just ended, I think. So but there will be another contest and there's all kinds of fun stuff going on. And so definitely check that out. And you guys, if you don't follow Never Give Up, definitely follow them, help them out, share their stuff, buy their shirts, because they really are trying to raise money to do some really amazing things. And every little bit counts. So yeah, man, I've had you on here for an hour. I think I'm gonna let you go tonight.
No worries, man. I gotta get to sleep. But thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's been awesome.
Cool. It was cool. You guys check out Never Give Up. Follow Matt. And yeah, reach out if you need anything.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
All right, brother. We'll see you later. Have a good night, guys.
Bye.